Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for a St. Patty's Day edition of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We are recording this at 11:36 a.m. I have not yet had a beverage, the sort of beverage that I'm going to be having many of later today, unless you count the ones that I had after midnight, which I guess, I don't know. Do they? Jeremy Cohen, hello, sir. Do those count? The bourbon that I was enjoying as I was writing the newsletter for Sunday morning?
I don't think so. I think they're part of yesterday's experience because that was before you went to sleep. You know, the day doesn't end until you go to bed, even when the clock changed, unless you wanted to, right? Like if it's your birthday, then it's absolutely there. That's the new day. But if you want to continue the night, it's just a day going longer than however many hours it was.
How fast and loose you're playing with these rules that we're just making up on the spot it's one of the many reasons why I love you, because you have your cat brain, your conch brain, as it were. But then when the time comes for it, you know what? Whatever works. You're right there for me. I appreciate it.
I've got a story, that I think you and some of our viewers would find amusing as well. So I'm still on the road.
Let's do it.
If you couldn't tell from my background, I'm still on the road. I can't seem to get out of the state of Texas. And so I'm here for work. I'm in Dallas. And for those who don't know, my job, I lead client services and creative for a drone light show company. And we're here in Dallas, can't seem to escape because of the weather and the shows that we're doing. And back on, what was it? Must have been Thursday. No, it was Friday. Friday night, we had a show. And we were looking for, there's an influencer who is supposed to be coming, filming the show, and doing everything with the content that they need to do. So it's my job, as someone who has never been to this city before, to figure out where exactly they could film this show. And we were in this place called Reunion Tower, which is like the one landmark of Dallas. The city has no prominent thing. It's just kind of that from a, hey, look at that skyline perspective. So we were there and we were trying to figure out exactly where the influencer would capture this show. And I had like an hour and a half to do it. So, you know, I'm racing to a rooftop bar to see if I get the best vantage point. And I'm looking at my phone and I'm also thinking, what is in the immediate area where it feels like a more organic, hey, what's this? Oh my God, that's awesome kind of show and approach. And so I look on my phone and I see the maps, and then basically like an 8-minute walk away is Dealey Plaza. And for those who don't know, Dealey Plaza is where JFK was assassinated. So, John, I felt it was insane because here I am, right?
Yes.
Going around Dallas, looking at vantage points for a second shooter because we already had someone else doing content. And I just felt like this is art imitating life. And I couldn't believe it. And yet that's where we were. That's what happened.
We're through the looking glass now, as it were. Great job by you, Jeremy, to get us started off appropriately. And you know what? I'm going to bring it back to basketball because, Jeremy, we're here. But we're here. And what do I mean by that? Like, it's been a journey. It's been a journey over a number of years. And look, this is not a new thing. This is not, this has been here now for over a year and a half, but it feels somewhat appropriate today to be starting this Sunday show with you, praising a guy who coming off of now 2 40-point games, the second of which I have not had the opportunity to talk about yet. Neither of which have you had the opportunity to talk about yet. Where it's like we've wanted something as Knicks fans for so long, and it hit me as I woke up today, as I was just like kind of doing even more Jalen Brunson research / admiration. Like, this is it. This is the guy. We've arrived at the place, and there's other things we're going to talk about today. There's lots of praise to be doled out for this team right now for how they, spoiler alert, yet again, continue to find ways to win games they are probably not supposed to win. Lots of people responsible for that. Lots of praiseworthy individuals. And I should obviously say further to go. Like no finish lines have been crossed yet, but I don't know, man. Something about how I feel right now today feels a little bit different, feels a little bit special because of what this guy just continues to do. And I think we should start there.
It's easy to take him for granted, and I don't think people do because of how long it has been since getting. I mean, Carmelo Anthony was the last player to post back-to-back 40-point games. And the thing about Brunson with these past two games is it's felt almost effortless. It doesn't feel like he had to truly work for it. I mean, he did, right? He's a hard worker, but it just the way that it seemed like, it's just another day in the office. Ho-hum. And it's crazy. I'll never truly get over seeing him as a Knick because of how many years we were in the desert without a point guard. And how every single year, it was, well, who are the Knicks gonna get solved point guard situation? Who's gonna be the guy putting this player on a pedestal? And then Jalen Brunson humbly walks in the door and just takes off in such a way. And he is completely deserving of all NBA. The fact that that should go without saying, but now that it's also not based on position, that it's positionless, it makes you think of, well, I think based on position, he has a phenomenal argument for second team all NBA, right? But then you get even closer. It's like, well, without positions, what's really holding him back from being being nominated for that team and earning that distinction?
I think look, we have as of right now, there are 15 games left to go for the Knicks season. A few teams have, I think, a few more games. Injuries will continue to, I think, play a role. Not to get off topic, but Anthony Davis was injured last night, he's just short as of right now with the criteria. We have no idea the timing of that injury as of right now. But I thought Zach Lowe did a nice podcast on All NBA the other yesterday, actually. I think it dropped, or maybe 2 days ago, where he kind of grouped it into tiers, where it's like there's your 4 MVP candidates, then there's like a second tier with AD, Kawhi, KD, and who am I forgetting that also goes in that tier? Who else is a very good player in the NBA this year? There's one other player that he had in that group. I'll blanking, Tatum. But I'll think of it in a second. What? Tatum. Thank you. Tatum, the forgotten guy, best guy of the best team. He's pretty good. And then he had Brunson along with, I think, Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton in like the third tier of guys who are in strong consideration for that second team spot. I think barring injury to Brunson, I'm not even gonna say like barring a slump, because I think that's part of what makes him so special is I kind of think he's slump proof. Because I was looking at it this morning. Since Randall went out, do you know what his 3-point percentage is? Just take a guess.
42.
That's funny that you perceive it to be much higher. It's actually 34.4%. The
looks would be worse. That's fair.
The looks are much worse, and XJ's been all over this. I've been saying that. The quality of he's not taking as many pull-ups. The pull-ups aren't going down as much, and obviously he's not getting really any quality catch and shoot opportunities. So the 3-point percentage is down to 34.4%. And yet, in the 18 games that he has played, since Julius Randle went down, and all but 3 games have been without OG Anunoby, the Knicks are 11-7. He is averaging 30 points, 6.5 assists. The only knock, and it's like I say knock in like kind of exaggerated air quotes, his effective field goal percentage is 52.7. I looked it up a few minutes ago, which is like, I mean, it's very good, but it's not on the level of like your top 5 MVP candidates. But also, and I do not say this to disparage anybody on the Knicks roster, but look at what he is. Look at some of the guys he's out there competing with and counting on, like the Dante DiVincenzo's and Josh Hart's and Isaiah Hartenstein's of the world. These are fabulous 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th men on a sort of team that would typically have an MVP candidate. They are his 2nd and 3rd and 4th and like best players throughout this run. And they've been up and down. Dante Vincenzo's in the midst of a shooting slump. Josh Hart's shot comes and goes. Hartenstein has finally started to put it together post Achilles injury, but prior to that, he's been a little bit spotty. My point is, those are MVP numbers, 30 and 6.5, and in those 18 games, they're 11 and 7. That's a 50 win pace. And that's kind of what inspired me to start off the show the way I did, because the star conversation is over. We have I know we've said versions of this before, but we have our guy. He's here. What can we do to support him? Maybe we support him with another star. Maybe there's a possibility we support him with an even better star. Not that there are that many out there, but this all kind of crystallized for me this morning. Maybe it's because I'm going on 3 hours of sleep, but it feels appropriate to sing his praises. That's all.
100%. I think the MVP discussions are valid, entirely. Why is it that he should not be in the MVP conversation? Because
in the combo,
as I look at this Knicks team, I see a team that has just been ravaged by injuries, still staying afloat, still there. And through pretty much all of it, you have Jalen Brunson being productive, and you're talking about the All-NBA, and you mentioned someone like Tyrese Halliburton. And also if Brunson has a few off games, but the way I see it is Hallie has had so many off games recently. It's like Brunson, right? That whether it's injury or just not living up to whatever it was before, whatever it might be. But it's almost like, how many games does Brunson need to play poorly to even get to Halliburton's come down level? And completely. I feel like the answer is more games than exist for the remainder of the season, because of just how good he has been and how Hallie has underwhelmed in a lot of those games. And I traded Hield. They lost Mathurin. There's less help, but also the Knicks have lost players to injury as well. So yes, I'm glad that, especially after last night, there were some tweets from fellow NBA players who were praising Brunson's game. And it's nice to have that. And it's even better when it manifests as wins. And a big part of those wins, of course, with OG Anunoby coming back, which was sorely missed.
Yeah. And absolutely. It's a good transition. So the Knicks are now, after a 3-0 week. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. You had it on a silver platter.
Yeah, you know who I actually blame? I blame Benji for putting me on this losing streak, because if he had just, again, that's why I threw the tomatoes. If he had just picked 2-2, like I wanted him to, as I was listening to the pod, feeling like Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar screaming at him from the other dimension. And no, that's not good enough. He's got to pick a worse record. He has no trust. And now I'm on the receiving end of it.
Benji's going to be he's going to be in his home library. There's going to be books flying out of the fucking shelves.
I'm like, oh, that's fine.
Hearing voices. We'll get back to that later. So yeah, a 3-0 week, obviously wins over the Sixers, Blazers, and now Kings. Brings the Knicks record with OG Anunoby to 15-2. And DJ tweeted something to this effect before. I believe one of those losses, correct me if I'm wrong, was without Jalen Brunson. Does that sound?
Yes, the MLK day.
Thank you, sir. Oh, GMAC. I could always count on you to pop in when need be. Yeah. So, it's even better than that. And also credit, DJ's been all over this stuff. He sent out a tweet before showing some Knick shooting percentages. I think it was Brunson, Hartenstein, and maybe Josh Hart with Anunoby, or in games with Anunoby and then games without Anunoby. And the difference is just so incredibly stark. So with Anunoby, I mean, obviously the defense goes without saying. I thought his defensive performance in the last 4 minutes of the Kings game were, that masterclass level stuff, him along with Hartenstein. But even in games where he's not hitting shots, and he went 1 for 8, I think last night, the elbow's still obviously bothering him. He's still making a positive impact just by being out there, just by giving the defense another guy to have to pay attention to from distance. And that's the OG impact. But the defense, Brunson should be the lead story, but they have given up under 100 points in 6 or 7 games this month. And I looked it up late last night. The gap since March 1st between them and the number 2 defense, which I believe is the Pelicans, actually, Andrew Claudio's New Orleans Pelicans. The gap between them and the Pelicans is the same as the gap between the Pels and I think the 17th ranked Suns in that time. Yes, the matchups have been favorable, but like, I don't know, Jeremy, when's the last time we've seen Knicks defense this good? Did we hear season earlier? I honestly, I'm not even really sure.
Forget about the matchups. These are still professional NBA players. They're trying to win games.
Okay,
and
tips.
they were held under 80 points. The Sixers were held under 80 points twice.
Yeah.
The Magic were held under 80 points. The darling Magic that so many people love to talk about. And they're a fun team.
Yep.
Better social media platform, but in terms of it's a great song. You can't knock it.
It's a really good song. Yeah.
But you have to do it, and the Knicks did the thing. I mean, the way that Hartenstein made Sabonis look last night, I mean, reduced to who I believe is deserving, especially with these injuries, of serious All-NBA consideration.
Absolutely.
And if you were like, imagine an alien coming down for one night and somehow knowing all the rules about basketball. I don't know how, but they just do. And they see this one game, they would have been like, who is that tall player on the Kings? And why is he just not as good as you think? You're like, actually, he's an excellent player. And they'd be like, well, clearly the other player on the other court, Hartenstein is better. It'd be like, yeah, man, let's believe that. That's fine. So Hartenstein doing what he did, I mean, that was staggering. So yeah, they did exactly what they needed to do on the defensive end. Those the 3 consecutive steals that OG had the other night as well, just sorely missed.
The Kings scored 91 points in this game. They have not scored that few of points at home at any point in the last 2 seasons since they've been. Well, last season they were the best offense in NBA history. This season they're very good, but not quite to that level. But yeah, they haven't scored this few points. And shout out to you, Jeremy Cohen, your beloved defensive EPM. There he is, Isaiah Hartenstein, number 1 with a bullet in the league, plus 4.0. Obviously, 100th percentile foul. And like you look, we always talk about you take all the advanced metrics with like a grain of salt because they should not be the be all end all. But I do find it interesting that the 3 guys after him on this list, second, Jonathan Isaac, who, Stan Van Gundy, I know, said this, Lowe has said it on his podcast, maybe on a per minute basis, the best defensive player in the NBA this season. He's number 2. Marcus Smart, who I know he's fallen off and obviously hasn't played 20 games this year, but last season's, or 2 seasons ago, but Defense Player of the Year winner. And then 4th, Joel Embiid, who's like, pretty decent defensive player in his own right. And then you look down and there's guys like Evan Mobley, Alex Caruso, Victor Wembanyama. Heard of him? Like this is and then it was just inside the top 10. There's OG Anunoby. So like this is a statistic that based on the names that show up, has absolutely, a good deal of merit. And I know this isn't in the rundown. I don't want to spend too long on this, but like, you have Brunson scoring like he's scoring, again, joining King, Ewing, Melo, only the 4th Knick ever with consecutive 40-point games. Andrew has a note here. Hart has now had 23 games this season of 10 or more rebounds, by far, almost 5 times as many as the next closest guy in the league who's under 6'5". We've talked about Anunoby. Who is the second most important Knick to you right now? And I will give you I'll answer the question too. I don't know what I'm going to answer. I'll give us both the caveat that this is the sort of thing I think that could change like game to game, week to week, if not game to game.
You're saying in general, not named Jalen Brunson.
Well, unless do you think that there's an argument for who the first most important Knick is? Because I don't think there's an argument.
No, I don't.
Okay, great. Yeah. Yes. After Jalen Brunson, who is the next most important Knick?
Also, one added caveat, if we're going to include Marcus Smart in the conversation of the defensive EPM because of games played, then we also should count Mitchell Robinson, who is 12th in the NBA in defensive EPM. So the Knicks have 3 defenders who are in the top 12. Granted, Robinson, much smaller sample size, but we know how good he was before he went out with the injury.
He was we were talking about him as he should be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That happened. That was a thing. I remember that.
Yes, it was a real thing. I can't help but feel like it's OG Anunoby as the second most impactful player. And I think the biggest factor here, and again, this is with Randall out, and Kevin Danishevsky pointed me in this direction because it had been so long since OG had played that I guess I forgot just how good his impact is, or how much of an impact he has, a positive one, where still like somewhat small because of there's not one set lineup that has played a ton of possessions with OG, but in 329 total possessions with Brunson on the court and OG on the court and Randall off the court, the Knicks have a differential, according to Clean the Glass, of plus 32.4. That would be in the 100th percentile. Their offense is 124.9 points per possession. That's the 98th percentile. And their defense is 92.5 points per possession. That would be the 100th percentile.
That's such a stupid number.
Mm-hmm.
That is the dumbest thing ever. 92, you said?
92.5.
Jesus.
And I think that if you were to say
the worst offense in the league this year is a worst offense in the league, I think is at like 107 or 108 per 100.
Yeah. But just like even going back, 3 months ago, it would not be anything near like our thoughts, right? We would not have gone into this thing like it would have been good, but it would have been like, well, what are you trading off on offense because you don't have someone who's able to create nearly as much? Like, yeah, the defense is good, and granted, he's missed time, but this win streak these 3 games have reduced the margin of error so significantly to the point where you've bought yourself a lot more time than you had before.
For that reason, the conversation about like biggest win of the season is always a fraught one to me because like in the moment, context matters, that the context changes as you go along. So like in retrospect, like what you thought was like a massive win, maybe it becomes less massive as the things develop. Something about this Kings win guaranteeing them a 2-2 road trip, and look, the way this team is playing, like they have a chance in every game. They could go beat Golden State. They could go beat Denver even. I thought that was really, really important, especially with, as we'll talk about in a minute, the rest of the teams that are, well, for 2 reasons. One, the rest of the teams that are chasing them in the East had and look, maybe one of these teams loses today. We're recording this before Sunday's games, but an angel food cake schedule this weekend. And so far, those respective teams that are chasing the Knicks are 4-0 since on between the games on Friday and Saturday. We'll see what happens today. But also the second part is Cleveland. Like, man, it may be too far a bridge to cross. But Donovan Mitchell injured or re-injured or aggravated or something his knee in a blowout to the Houston Rockets last night, has already said he's not going to play Monday's game against the Pacers. They are 2 games in front, and the Knicks hold the tiebreaker. So, 2 games with 15 left doesn't sound like a lot. Especially when you have the tiebreaker. It's not a lot, but it's not nothing. It's kind of a lot. So I thought the win was important from that perspective. To answer my own question, with all due respect to Hartenstein, who I think gets an honorable mention here, I think it comes down to OG and Randall. And the thing that makes me want to at least give Randall a little bit of consideration here, or maybe more than a little bit of consideration. The Knicks are in this month. I said how great their defense is. They're also 27th in the league in scoring, in offensive rating, which is like, not great. Now, granted, DiVincenzo's been in a slump for that entire time. OG wasn't there for part of the time, but OG's been back now, and the offense still has struggled a bit. So, like, we'll see. Maybe the thing with the Detroit guys that started last night, that becomes a thing. I don't know. I'd probably lean OG, but it's a tough call for me.
To be clear, I thought we were just basing.
Oh, just the guys that are here. Oh, okay,
right. Right.
Would you
That's
change your
why I
answer
picked-
then? It's tough, right?
It is tough because it's how much do you value the defensive side versus the offensive side? And the challenge here is so much of what we saw with OG also came with Randall as well. And then we didn't get to see as much of OG by himself. And now we do. We are getting to that point where the data is piling up more. And it's like, again, the whole Randall argument from those who are just saying want someone that isn't Randall. It's not. Randall is not an excellent ball player. It is there someone who has similar production but different, like how they operate is different. You know, like obviously he's not coming to the Knicks right now, but a Devin Booker type, right?
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell, like any of these names, Joel Embiid, like whatever, obviously better players than Randall, of course, but how they impact the team from that standpoint. And like, I don't think that what we see without Randall is a good case to use against him because the offense is still far better. And the Knicks were clicking with Randall and OG Anunoby. So it doesn't have to be an either or. But in terms of like the Knicks were floundering. And if you bring Randall back before OG, I just have, I don't want to say a tough time, but it's a tougher time in my mind. And we don't necessarily know, but of seeing the impact. Like I don't feel as comfortable with the Knicks winning these games if Randall's back and OG isn't. But that's not to say that they couldn't, because
it's a great point.
Simply don't know.
No, it's a fantastic point. And it's because they clearly need Randall's offense. I think so, at least. Reasonable minds could differ. I think they need Randall's offense over a 7-game playoff series against a good team. Mm-hmm. But like the versatility they have now to run out these lineups and we don't even have Mitch back yet. To be able to put these units out there that like just other teams are just, it doesn't matter who the other team is. Maybe Boston's the exception, that these teams are just not going to be able to put a dent into. It's like you almost wonder, is there a world where Randall comes back post injury where maybe he doesn't play? This famous last words with Tibbs as the head coach, but like maybe he doesn't play 35 minutes. Maybe he plays more close to something to 25 to 30. OG, you need out there for close to, listen, I'm sure Tibbs would like to play OG for 48 minutes every night, but like there's never a time where and this is, I think, maybe why the answer is OG, because you want OG out there, no doubt about it, no questions asked, for as many minutes as he could be out there. But we are maybe heading towards a world where is there a correct minute number for Randall that is less than what he was accustomed to playing. But at the same time, during those minutes, he's going to be vital. Because Brunson, even last night, I mean, look, dude scored 42 points. He was tired by the end of that game. You know, he had the one basket at the end, but before that, missed 3 straight. He can only do so much by himself. Hopefully, we get to see Randall, and we could have this conversation again later. Let's do a quick playoff picture update. So, Andrew Claudio, kind enough to have made this lovely color coordinated chart. Andrew, you think Andrew was one of those guys in grammar school that he was he had the 64 color Crayola set?
Maybe even the 128.
28, man.
Although I don't know if 128 was around when Andrew was in school. Yeah, that's not an age joke. That's more of just a Crayola. Yeah, but it bothers me that Andrew's doing all these colors, and it's great, but like doesn't even match the hex codes. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable, Andrew, that you wouldn't get
slacking. Yes, totally.
What do you even do here, buddy? Like, come on.
I don't know.
Clearly nothing.
Clearly. I mean, my God.
All right. Okay, let's do. Should we start at the top or the bottom?
I don't know.
Let's start at the top. What the hell? Yeah. Okay, so Milwaukee, 43-24. They are 3 games ahead of the Knicks with 15 games to play, and they do own the tiebreaker. I feel like I know they have a brutal schedule still. Maybe not brutal, but they have a hard schedule down the stretch. I feel like 3 with the tiebreaker, 15 left. That's going to, I don't want to call it, but it's pretty much be ready to be called. Their next 5 games: Phoenix at home, at Boston, should be a pretty entertaining game, and then 3 consecutive home games: Brooklyn, OKC, at LA. if they go like 1-4
in Milwaukee against. Did you say and LA or in LA?
And sorry, I said in LA. It is against the LA Lakers. So 4 of their next 5 at home. Like Milwaukee, even if they go like 2-3 in this stretch, I think that's all they need to do to really continue on the path to a 2 or 3 seed. Cleveland, maybe a little bit dicier. Monday at Indiana. Sorry, they're 42-25, so 2 games ahead of the Knicks. At Indiana, Miami at home, at Minnesota, at Miami, and then Charlotte. They have 3 games remaining against the Charlotte Hornets, including that game I just mentioned. That's the first end of a home and home. So the Hornets will be playing potentially a prominent role in deciding New York's playoff fate down the stretch of the season. The Knicks 40-27. Congrats, by the way, to them for winning 40 games at least for just the 7th time this century. Their upcoming games at the Warriors, at the Nuggets, and then back home, Brooklyn, Detroit, and then a trip up north to Toronto. We'll get back to something in regards to the Raptors in a few minutes. Okay, and then here are the teams chasing the Knicks. Orlando, 1 game back, 39-28. They have 5 consecutive home games coming up. A manageable slate. Toronto, Charlotte, Pelicans, Sacramento, Golden State Warriors. We'll see what they do with that. Indiana, 38-30. 2.5 games back of the Knicks. They are facing Cleveland at home on Monday, and then we have 4 straight on the road for them at Detroit, at the Warriors, at the Lakers, at the Clippers. I think that road trip includes a 5th road game. So Indiana got their work cut out for them. Speaking of work cut out for them, the Philadelphia 76ers, who had to kind of scrap and claw to beat the Hornets in Charlotte over the weekend, 37-30, 3 games back in the Knicks. Miami at home, and then 4 straight on the road. Philly, Lakers, Clippers, Kings, and then last and certainly least, fuck them, the Miami Heat. 30. I mean, come on, 36-30.
You're right.
Don't apologize, coach.
You're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for saying I'm sorry. 36-30, 3.5 games back of the Knicks. I want to call it so bad. I want to call it. Their next games at Detroit, at Philly, at Cleveland, and then New Orleans and Cleveland again at home. And by the way, thank you, GMAC. That last game of the Indiana road trip is against the Chicago Bulls. For the Pacers. Speaking of the Bulls, I know we don't face them in the next 5 days, but the Knicks still have 3 games left against the Bulls. Speaking of teams that'll have something to say about where the Knicks finish this season. Okay. Give me a takeaway or 2, Jeremy. What are your thoughts?
I'd say my biggest takeaway is the Donovan Mitchell injury is lingering in a way that the Knicks might be able to sneak up into that 3 seed, especially with OG Anunoby back. That's the thing I have the largest thoughts on. Then it comes down to, is there a world where the Cavs even slide down to 6? But I think that's a daunting task because they're 4.5 up of Indiana. It's a lot of games that they would have to lose.
That's a bit much. Maybe 5th.
I know it could be, but then there's a part of me that's like, man, what if Orlando leapfrogs both teams and the Knicks play the Cavs in the first round again? But then if you win, you're on the Celtics side of the bracket. But Milwaukee's still pretty good, and they're getting it together. So they're not going to be any easy dances in the playoffs. But
no.
I just the fact that the Cavs are, even with Garland, rounding a little bit more into form. I think that's going to be one of the most fascinating storylines this summer, which is you've got Mitchell playing incredibly well without Garland. You've Garland playing really well without Mitchell. Do you have them play together in perpetuity? What do you do there? But that's the future, the present. I like the Knicks' odds of being able to get back into that 3 seed, but like, getting Randall back would certainly benefit that. Last week, also, we talked about Randall back, Mitch back. Do you still feel like Randall comes back before Mitch, or does that change based on some of the commentary that was provided by Tibbs?
That's a great question.
Purely speculating, for whatever it's worth, because that's all we can do.
March 17th. I think it could change, because I think with Mitch. Sorry, I'm processing here. I think with Mitch, it's like when Mitch is ready, when he's ready to go, they're going to put him back out there. Like, they don't have anything to worry about. Like, when he's ready to go, he's going to go. Like, start ramping up the conditioning, the whole thing. With Randall, and I kind of tried to allude to this in a podcast at some point over the last week. Maybe it was with you. I don't know. Again, it all runs together at this point in the season. But, like, I feel like they're kind of, the whole Randall thing is like a play it by ear situation where because they know once he's back, as soon as he's back, the other shoe could drop immediately. Like, one wrong something and he re-injures it, and that's it. No more Randall. So it's like you want to save him for what is most necessary. If they continue to move along here and win enough games and they're like, all right, we're close enough to the 2-3. We feel good enough about our chances to make a real run for that, even without Randall. Like, I don't know. Maybe we don't see Randall until the last week of the season. Like, whereas if they lose I'm not saying they're going to do this, but if they lose like the next 3 straight games, then does that change things? Like, it's up in the air. If you ask me to bet right now, I'd bet that we're going to see Randall before Mitch still, but completely up in the air for me.
It's fair.
Yeah. You made me think of it just by saying about the Cavs offseason. I think among the best teams in both conferences, like whatever you want, top 8 teams in both conferences, I think you can make a pretty good argument that maybe 4 of the top 5 most interesting teams of the offseason are all in the thick of this East playoff race between the Cavs, the Knicks, the Magic, and the Sixers. And I would probably throw Minnesota in there because of like the town's financial situation impending. But like all those teams, I don't know. I think that they all deserve a spotlight for different reasons this summer. We'll see how that goes. What's my takeaway? My takeaway is I think Philly is fascinating in that is there a world where they get Embiid back for the playoffs and manage to sneak in and manage to get back up to the 6th seed? Because like if you're a prospective 3 seed, do you want to face Joel Embiid in the first round of the playoffs? I mean, ideally not. Maybe you don't have a choice. But what's better? What is it better to fall into the 4-5 and potentially face an Orlando or an Indiana, maybe even a hobbled Cleveland? Like, what's Embiid going to bring? There's so much uncertainty when it comes to all this stuff, which is why I think this is the most interesting NBA storyline of the next 4 weeks, with all due respect to what's going on out west.
I would say so, especially if you're the Knicks and you manage to move up in the standings. Yeah. Does Philly win enough games to then finish in the 6th seed, and then the Knicks draw the Sixers, and then Embiid comes back, and then you're looking at arguably a tougher matchup than 1, 2, 4, or even 5?
Yeah.
Not sure, but something I'd like to prevent. I would much rather play Indiana. I know we differ there, but I don't think we differ. You'd rather see Indiana than Philly in the playoffs. I'm coming around to your neck of the woods after Orlando. I think at this point, putting Miami aside for the moment, because like, my God, I don't even know what to say about them at this point. They're just at some point the wheels are gonna fall off. Maybe we're witnessing it and we just don't realize it. But I think after Orlando, I would say Indiana would be the preferred team to play for sure. Okay, let's move on. Let's give out a game ball. Given to a player, coach, or entity that stood out this week and deserves special recognition, largely based on oh wait, no, that shouldn't be there. No, deserves special recognition. We are going to give out game balls, but the only game ball that really matters this week, and I know some other members of the Knicks Film School family have already gotten a chance to speak on this. I unfortunately have not.
it is going to RJ Barrett and the entire Barrett family. On behalf of Knicks Film School, I thought Fred was extremely poignant on Catch and Shoot and how he phrased it, specifically talking about how you're not going to find a nicer guy than RJ Barrett. And I, again, only had the privilege of covering the team in person for like half a season during RJ Barrett's rookie year. But like, I remember seeing his dad at a lot of those games, and it was just like so clear that family was just a family full of love, and just they like the sort of, you don't want anything bad to happen to anybody at any point in time, but for this to befall them, and then just like speaking as a parent, because like it's weird, you cross this Rubicon in your life where you stop looking at things, you start looking at things from a different perspective, and like I'm going to be 41 in less than a couple of months. Like RJ's brother was 20, like he was young enough to be like my son. Like I can't imagine losing a child at that age, to say nothing of what it must feel like for RJ to lose a sibling, seeing like how my girls are. So like, just condolences, thoughts going out to them, and I can't even imagine what they must be feeling. And I don't know what to say other than that. Our hearts go out to them. Okay,
I think you summed it up very well.
I try. Okay. Basketball game balls. So candidates here. We have quite a few candidates, it looks like. Start at the top. Jalen Brunson, 107 points in 101 minutes this week. Is that good? It's good. Isaiah Hartenstein, 28 rebounds. He was a plus 28 in 3 games this week. Josh Hart, 47 rebounds on 120 minutes, third in the NBA in total rebounds this week. That's freaking wild. He's the only player in the top 15 who's under 6'10". OG Anunoby, plus 45 in 3 games since his return. You don't have to shoot well to play well. Yes, very correct. And finally, Thomas, I didn't even know this was his middle name. Thomas Joseph Thibodeau Jr. Sure, let's go with that. The Knicks were the 4 seed when these injuries started to pile up after the Heat game, and they remain the 4 seed 21 games later. And still within striking distance of a top 3 seed. As much as I would love to give it to Tibbs, I think he continues to do a really nice job this season, and I could really give it to any of these other guys. I will go ahead and bestow the honor on the gentleman who is just putting the team on his back and leading them to wins. My favorite stat that I dug up late last night, and I'll see if I could pull it up really quick here, is Jalen Brunson has scored. This is the last 2, just the last 2 games, has scored, I believe, 43% of New York's points. That is ridiculous. It's absurd. I don't know what else there is to say. He is, as we said already, I don't want to repeat myself. He's an MVP. He should be an MVP candidate. He should at least be in serious consideration to get people's, at worst, 5th spots on the ballot. I'm not saying he's going to finish 5th, but like, I think there's a really good argument. One last thing. He, over the last 2 games, has shot 53.4%. His teammates have shot 38.2%. That's a 15% difference. They needed every one of his baskets.
Not bad. Yeah, I'd say the Jalen Brunson game ball is deserving of going to Jalen Brunson. I would say my candidate for the Jalen Brunson game ball is going to be for OG Anunoby, just based on how, especially being on the road as frequently as I have been and will continue to be, but tuning into Knicks games, it can be a challenge. I've got stuff going on at night. If I watch the games, typically try to get them in the next day or when I get back to the hotel later. And I make the time when I can, but especially doing that when OG Anunoby is playing. I would love to tune in just for Jalen Brunson, but also just Jalen Brunson isn't always going to be a win because of just other players on the court need to be there. And OG coming in helps solidify that, where the games that I get to watch are in real time are wins, which enhances my enjoyment and my entertainment, because it's not just, hey, what am I doing for work to prep for our podcast? It's, what am I doing for work and enjoying it while I do it? And it's not to say I can't enjoy the Knicks, but it's tough to do it when so many of their better players are sidelined. And so even with getting OG back, it brings more light to my life from watching these games. So I thank OG for his return, and he is getting my game ball.
Excellent choice. There's no wrong choices here. Evinced by the fact that detention, which is given to a player, coach, or entity that deserves to sit down for a while and think about what they have done wrong, is closed for this week, with the exception perpetually, always and forever, Jaime Jaquez Jr. The Jaime Jaquez Jr. detention room is empty for this week. Let's say that. All right, here we go. It's time. I'm on the comeback trail. One last week, 8-10 for the year. You are 10-8. There are 3 games. We have the ESPN game on Monday that is at Golden State. Then the Knicks get 2 games off to prepare for playing in Mile High, where they won last year in a game where Jokic missed. They've won 3 straight against Denver. And then a Saturday afternoon game coming back home against the Brooklyn Nets. That's at 1 p.m. We'll have some more something on that game in a bit. This is tough, Jeremy. This is tough. And this is very much it's a little bit of head versus heart, but also my head is telling me to maybe follow my heart a little bit. It like the notion that I'm sitting here thinking about picking 1 and 2 for a team that is 15-2 with OG Anunoby in the lineup, and like he's played the last 2 games. You figure he's going to continue to play even with the elbow iffiness.
What if he doesn't?
And what if he doesn't? I don't know how. Don't know when the wins are going to come, but I'll go 2-1. Let's do that.
I figured you would.
I know.
Yeah, which puts me in a very difficult position. So
I don't think it puts you in that difficult position.
I think it does. Look, this is where I'm struggling, right? Because essentially the thought process here is, do you believe the Knicks can beat the Nuggets? Right? That's essentially what I'm gravitating towards. Because I would have picked 2-1. So if I think the Knicks will lose to the Nuggets, it doesn't make sense for me to pick 3-0. But also, to your point of how well the Knicks are playing, and also where are we saying that am I saying they're going to go undefeated on a road trip? Especially when they're playing the Nuggets, who at this point have won every game since the All-Star break, except for one, which was in overtime, who are playing the Dallas Mavericks today without Luka, which, fun fact, I will actually likely be in attendance for. So that should be fun. I will be a Nuggets fan for the draft pick.
That's very cool.
They're fun to watch. Yeah. It's cool to be able to do that. And so this is where I'm at. And also, what happens if they win both games on the road magically and then get to MSG and somehow the Nets surprise them? So I am just going to go 3-0 because I just don't. I don't want to root for losses, and
I'm shocked
to do 3-0. Yeah, look, if they go 1-2, then that's fine. I'd rather be aspirational and then they succumb to it than other way around. So,
look, man,
this is a tough one. This is one of the hardest ones that we've had to deal with all season in terms of picking.
Denver is, as you mentioned, they're what is this? 11-1 since the All-Star break. And again, the one loss you referenced was a Phoenix game where they were like, I watched enough of that game. Like the Nuggets did not have it at all. And yet they made a furious fourth quarter comeback, got it to overtime against all odds. Phoenix had a lot to do with that as well. And then the Nuggets just kind of ran out of gas in overtime. But like they're just running roughshod over the league. They're getting ready they're making a run at the number 1 seed, which is why I think this game will matter to them, because they're trying to beat out OKC for that, and maybe Minnesota still hang around. But anyway,
but it matters to the Knicks too, and that's why they will go 3-0.
Every game Knicks, we know that. Okay, we'll see what happens. I hope you're right. I hope you win, and then I could do no better than tie in our final season standings, I think. Okay, before we go, a few announcements, but the most important of which is, speaking of that Saturday game against the Nets, we have a watch party. We have a watch party coming up at T Squared Social. That is where we held our last watch party. It is, again, 7 East 42nd Street. It is right down the block from Grand Central Station. We're really excited about this one. And when me and Andrew first discussed, we wanted to do one more regular season watch party, and there wasn't a perfect date that really checked all the boxes. And I was like, what about doing it, like that Saturday afternoon? Because, like, I know for me, I have 2 kids. It's like, all right, you're looking for things to do. It's still kind of cold out in New York City. T Squared Social is a great place. You could bring your kids. Like, they have like the duck pin bowling. They have the different simulators where you could do, you could do soccer, you could do basketball, you could do golf. So like, quite literally fun for the whole family. We're kicking things off at noon, free admission. Don't pay a dime. And then 1 o'clock, we're going to turn the game on. Obviously, there will also be college basketball on. There's going to be, I think, right, Andrew, there's a Rangers thing going on also later that day.
Yeah, so the Knicks are at 1, as John just mentioned. That's also the Saturday of the NCAA tournament, so there will be 4 other college basketball games going on during the Knicks game. And if you want to hang out, the Rangers play the Panthers that night in a very pivotal NHL game at 8 o'clock, also at the Garden. The Gardens itself is having a doubleheader. So if you want to hang out all day at T Squared Social, they still haven't renamed it from the Mega Bowl, but we'll come hang out with us, and then maybe we'll hang out a little bit after.
Yeah, I think you could make an argument that the first weekend of the NCAA tournament is, Thursday and Friday, but a lot of people have jobs. So I think you can make an argument that the most feasible the best feasible watching sports day of the year is the Saturday, the first Saturday of the NCAA tournament. So come, enjoy, hang out. Again, the Knicks game will be on. There'll be a lot of Knicks fans there. We'll be there. Get there at noon. And I don't think there's anything else to say. We're excited about it.
We're really putting the KFS curse to the test against the Nets. That's all I'm going to say. I think it'll be
fucking curse. We are breaking the curse on Saturday. I'm calling it now. We are breaking it. This curse is over. Done.
Joe Namath calling your shot. I love it.
I rarely call wins. I'm calling this one.
Speaking of shots, I did not that Dealey Plaza reference, Jeremy. I as soon as you said it, I was like, oh my God, Jeremy literally went to the place where JFK happened.
Yeah, and by the way, while I was there, QAnon was right. I saw Jack Jr. He was there. His phantom ghost passed through, and no one else saw it. The breadcrumbs, they were there.
Did you go to the knoll and you were like, oh, so this is where the second shooter came from? Okay, got it.
I was a little preoccupied with work to like truly soak in. Okay, this is that direction, but I did see it. I just wasn't like, oh, that's it. And as I remember, it was like that was the grassy knoll area. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the Dealey Plaza is a lot smaller than you would think. I made sure to phrase that so Andrew wouldn't hit me with it. That's what she said. But it's, I also went to the rodeo yesterday. That was pretty fun. Anywhere that I can sing God Bless the USA and then bow my head in prayer with the rest of fellow Americans and then sing Pledge of Allegiance as someone rides around on a horse carrying an American flag is a good day in my mind. But that's sexist, baby. I also leaned over to someone and I smugly was like, is this your first rodeo? And the guy did it in a way that like he was like, oh, no, I've been before. And I was great. Like, but then I said, so you're saying it's not your first rodeo? And then the guy just didn't catch on to the joke. So I had to ask legitimate questions like, oh, cool. So how was this scored? Great guy. Great. Very friendly. But I had to turn a joke into a learning lesson.
Conversation.
Yeah.
That's great. Well done.
God bless Texas. Indeed.
Yes. And God bless America. God bless the Irish today. And on that note, there you go. I'm gonna get upstairs and be off with my wife and family to go celebrate. As all St. Patrick's celebrations should be had. Jeremy Cohen, thank you, sir. Andrew Claudio, thank you. And thank you everybody out there for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Ton of great stuff coming up this week. Be on the lookout for all of the usual fun and games, and we will be back with you before you know it.